All right, so I guess we could start out by talking about what your company's about, and I guess like your elevator pitch, like how you would explain it to a potential customer or someone interested in your business.
You want me to take it? Yeah. So the original idea behind Pagevamp came when we were running a small web design agency. And we would traditionally build WordPress websites for them or using some other existing platforms. But what we found that even these platforms that were designed to be user-friendly were actually too complicated for small businesses because they had never dealt with any sort of web platform at all, let alone a complex CMS like WordPress or Squarespace. The one thing that they did know how to use was Facebook, just because it's like the most popular piece of web software in the world. So we thought, wouldn't it be cool if businesses could manage and update their websites from their Facebook page, because that interface is familiar to them. So the first version of the product we actually built at PennApps Hackathon. We got some users on it, and people liked it, and we sort of expanded it from there. So now Pagevamp is our website builder, and the key component is that businesses can create and manage their websites from their Facebook pages.
All right, so I guess maybe now we can talk about your hackathon experience at PennApps, and like I guess like your favorite memories and experiences, and like what you learned at PennApps.
Yeah. So our first experience. So I was talking to Kevin Conley, who was at the time, this was 4 years ago, so he was at the time like the two-time like PennApps winner, and he was just really open and like humble about PennApps, and was like, yeah, like you guys should do it. Like anyone can, even if you don't have any hackathon experience, it's something that's very open, and if you have ideas and you like building things, then that's something that I feel like you should do. And so I was really encouraged by that. And then Vincent had never coded before, so I was like, yo, like, do you want to do this hackathon with me? And I remember the day of, this was a Friday, and we had both committed to the hackathon, and I was sleeping in. Vince was like, dude, like we're still doing the hackathon, right? I'm like, oh shit, like I'm so tired right now, like that's the last thing I want to think about. And then he dragged me out of bed, and we showed up. We were actually rejected by like a lot of people in the hacker community because none of us were CS majors, and everyone wanted to have like a programmer on board. But we found someone, or a group of people who were similar to us. There was a Wharton kid and an electrical engineering kid, and we all just shared a bunch of ideas, and we eventually decided on a different idea, and then I guess the rest was history. Actually, we worked on the first version of Pagevamp at a hackathon 2 years ago, and we almost didn't do the hackathon that year. We were just brainstorming in our living room one night, and we realized that maintaining a website was a really big problem for a lot of these clubs on campus that we built websites for. So because we were using WordPress before, a lot of people didn't know how to use that, so we eventually came up with the idea of using Facebook as the primary gateway to allow people to manage a website. And it took a hackathon for us to build it out.
Yeah, I think like some fun moments of PennApps are like complete like delirium because you're so exhausted. I mean, you're putting in what would be maybe like weeks of work in a matter of like 48 hours. So there are these moments where like you can't even process or think, but like you're running on the fumes of caffeine that you've like ingested from the Red Bulls. But that's why it's really awesome when you come to your senses like post hackathon and like you look at what you've made in the course of that time and you're just like, holy shit, like this would have never been possible if I wasn't really forced into this time frame. You know, you like come up with some crazy stuff. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I actually remember, so I actually didn't fully participate in PennApps. It was only post PennApps that I would go to hackathons with these guys. But I would visit them every like 2 hours. And these guys were like zombies, but like determined to, you know, push this product, finish this product. And it was actually pretty inspiring. I mean, then I started doing mini projects after, you know, with these guys too. So definitely like great experience with PennApps.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess after like you got your idea established and like you had like a working prototype, I was wondering if you could talk about like the transition from like a startup idea to actually like formalizing everything and creating a company.
Yeah, so I think that it was a multi-phase process from being just like a PennApps hack to eventually becoming a company. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, like the mindset that we had going into it. So, you know, with a hack, you just sort of, and we had hacked and built other things before that we'd release and then not really work that much on them, and they just sort of phase out. But with Pagevamp, after we built the first version, we already had real customers from our previous design business, and we brought those customers on board to Pagevamp. And once you have people, like real people using your product, and not in a way like they use Facebook or like with social media, it's sort of like if the product dies and they just started using it, they're not really going to care. They have no investment. But these were businesses or clubs that had an investment in the website that they were putting out there. So we felt responsible to them. And I think because of that, that sort of kept pushing us to, you know, modify the product, listen to their feedback. And as we did that, we got some more customers, and it just became more and more real. The responsibility became real. And there was a moment where a friend of ours, their dad was in software, and he saw what we were doing, and you know, he essentially told us, like, I think this can be a real business. It doesn't have to be just like a school project. And while we were in the mindset that this was something we could do after college, it was like his believing in us and sort of joining in made it a reality. Like all of a sudden, you know, it wasn't just us being crazy young kids like working on this, that someone with experience was also feeling like this could be something. So it's like you start doing things that make it seem like a business, and then you start thinking like it's going to be a business, and then eventually, you know, once you graduate and you've put like all the pressure on yourself, you know, we got a 1-bedroom apartment for the 3 of us in New York, and we lived in 1 bedroom and worked in the living room. Like once you're there, now it's real. Like, you know, you gotta find a way to survive. So,
yeah, just to add to that, so I think having that mentor figure early on was definitely very important. In addition, so we were a part of Dorm Room Fund, and having that resource just so accessible, you know, helped us go that extra mile. Okay, we have a lot of these people believing in us. We have, you know, people backing us, and we also have resources in terms of if we have accounting questions, law questions, trying to structure the company. So having those resources available definitely helped us a lot.
Yeah, I also think a turning point moment is when you stop looking for sort of plan Bs and alternatives, because I think that when we were starting to work on Pagevamp, it was sort of like, okay, we're working on Pagevamp, but there's still this like OCR thing going on. That's a possibility. You know, or I can apply for jobs later, or I don't know. There are all these other options. I can go home, and the moment where it gets really real is when you're like, okay, I'm not building Pagevamp as a resume builder. I'm not building this to show to someone like how entrepreneurial I am. Like we're building this because we're like dedicating ourselves to the customer, and we want to make something big. And I think that for us, that wasn't always the case. And I had, you know, we've had friends that also, that's, you know, sometimes they build something because it's like a transition or a project to get experience. But when you really start building to see it through, that's like when you, like the momentum really starts.
I remember
rolling.
that. I think it was early October when we were all doing OCR. And at some point we were like, okay, we can't focus on this and focus on that. We have to close some doors to open this one. And that's when we collectively made a decision. All right, we're going all in with this. And fortunately, we had all these people believing in us. So that really helped.
Can you tell us more about your actual experience at the hackathon, you know, at PennApps? You know, what makes PennApps, what made it different from some of the other hackathons maybe you've been in?
Yeah, actually. Yeah. So we hadn't been to that many hackathons besides PennApps when we were at PennApps, but we've done some hackathons after PennApps. And I think that what's really nice about PennApps is that there isn't so much pressure to build something within the framework of like sponsors. So obviously PennApps has sponsors. Other hackathons have sponsors, but in other hackathons it's like they want you to really explore their API, and that's the primary goal.
PayPal sponsor.
Yeah, PayPal sponsors. Everything's got to be built on PayPal. whatever it may be. And that makes sense, I understand that. I understand what PayPal is thinking there. But PennApps was great because there seemed to be a lot of emphasis on building something cool and also just like socializing with the community. It doesn't have like a corporate feel, like this is done as a part of a marketing budget of a company. It really does feel like the original route for PennApps was to build cool things and to engage with this, like the community that likes to build cool things. And because of that, you see such crazy ideas and hacks that are built, like completely outlandish. Some of them could be like cool businesses, some of them are just really awesome technologies. And I think that that's pretty unique compared to some of the hackathons that you see not at like after graduation, where you see a lot of people just being like, oh, I built this with SendGrid and PayPal and SoundCloud and whatever, just to make it seem like they're using the sponsor APIs.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hacks lose some cool factor.
I remember, like, I think in New York, we went to one of these hackathons sponsored by a nonprofit, and they essentially gave you 5 topics or 5 things to build on. And then we were like, we came up with all these ideas. We're like, we want to build this. And they were like, nope, you have to stick to these 5 ideas, which, that confinement restriction.
And not just like the problem set that was open, also the solutions were open. So the nonprofit hackathon we went to, they had those 5 problems, and we were just like, yeah, like, okay, like it's limited, but we can still work with this. We can come up with innovative solutions. And even that was just thrown out. They already had an idea of what they wanted to build, and were basically using the hackathon as a way to get like cheap labor. And PennApps isn't like that. I mean, it's like the spirit of hackers is alive and ready in PennApps hackathon.
I think it's also cool at PennApps now that there are people coming in from different universities and even different countries. Like the first PennApps we did was small. It was there were some kids from other schools, but it was mostly Penn kids.
Yeah.
And I think when you bring in kids from other schools, it's like almost like I don't really know how like couch surfers work, but it's like people would stay with us, and like our like common point of interest was this hackathon. So it was more like a socializing across geographies around a common interest, as well as building cool things. And I think that is also pretty interesting, and it also helps spread. Like I think PennApps, I don't really know the history of hackathons, but I feel like PennApps was actually sort of like one of the starting points for like the college like hacking movement, because people started to come here from other schools, and then they would take the awesome things they saw at PennApps and they would bring them to their university. So now you see like things like M-Hacks or like Princeton Hacks or whatever, these other hackathons, and people go and visit, and now there's this whole community that crosses state boundaries around this. Another really cool thing about PennApps is that there are a lot of young people sort of at the beginning of their hacking or entrepreneurial careers, whatever they may choose to do. And these are like really smart people, the kind of people that you wouldn't be surprised if down the road they do great things. And you can already start to see that. Like the people that we would meet early on at PennApps have like gone on to found like pretty awesome companies like Lore or Firefly, which just got acquired by Pegasystems, which is a big company. And it's almost like you're getting to see it like in its early form, when people are just learning about how to do these things. And that's pretty exciting, like you never know the person that you might meet at PennApps, like what kind of a figure they're going to be to the world, like just a few months or years down the road. So that's like I find that to be kind of exhilarating and also empowering, because we're still young and starting off our entrepreneurial careers, but as we're seeing other people that walked in our like did what we did and become successful, it's almost like, hey, we can be a part of that movement, and all of these other people who are coming to PennApps now can also be a part of that movement. So I find that to be pretty cool. We are Pagevamp, and we hacked at PennApps.